My name is Sofia Andrade. I'm 32 years old and I live in Braga, Portugal. I could be anyone: a daughter, a mother, a friend, a coworker. The truth is, before everything happened, my life was just like thousands of people around the world. I woke up early, drank my coffee while gazing out the living room window, feeling the quiet of the morning as my 6-year-old daughter still slept in the next room. I work as a nurse in a local hospital, and even though I deal with the fragility of life every day, I have to admit I never truly explored the questions that always lingered in my heart. I always tried to give my best to my family. My elderly parents live close by, and I visit them on weekends. On Sundays, I like to walk through the city, feel the wind on my face, and sometimes step into a church for a moment of silence, even if I didn't fully understand what I was looking for. Deep down, I carried a restlessness. Is there something beyond what I can see? Is there purpose in suffering? Does God really care about me? Outwardly, my life seemed stable, even happy. But inside, I felt a longing for something I couldn't even explain. Maybe you relate to that silent emptiness, that search for something bigger than daily routines. Have you ever felt this way? Write in the comments. Do you also feel like something is missing, even when you have everything to be happy? Share your thoughts below. Even with a loving family and a steady job, the questions inside me only grew louder as the years went by. At times, late at night, I would lie awake listening to the soft breathing of my daughter and wonder about the true meaning of life. Why are we here? Why do some people suffer so much while others seem to glide through life untouched by pain? Why do good people die young? The world often felt chaotic, and no amount of daily routine could quiet the silent ache I felt deep in my chest. As a nurse, I saw both miracles and heartbreak every day. I held the hands of strangers as they took their final breaths. I comforted grieving families, all the while holding back my own tears. Some nights after a particularly difficult shift, I would sit alone at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, and feel the weight of all those lives and stories pressing in on me. I began to fear death, not just for myself, but for everyone I loved. I started to ask, what if there really is nothing after this? Or worse, what if there is, but I'm not ready for it? I tried to distract myself by staying busy, making lunches, folding laundry, scrolling through social media. But deep down, I knew these were just bandages over a wound that wouldn't heal. I kept searching for meaning in little things: a kind word from a stranger, the laughter of my daughter, the peacefulness of a sunset. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial was missing. Sometimes I even envied people who seemed to have strong faith, who walked through life with a sense of certainty. I wondered what it would be like to truly believe in something greater than myself. One evening, after another exhausting day at the hospital, I sat on my balcony and watched the city lights flicker on. Tears came to my eyes, and I whispered a question to the night sky. God, if you're real, if you can hear me, please show me. I felt foolish and vulnerable, but also strangely hopeful. In that moment, I realized that all my doubts and fears were really a desperate longing for answers, a longing for truth, for comfort, for purpose. And now I want to ask you, have you ever found yourself struggling with doubts or fears about life, death, or faith? What questions have kept you awake at night? Please share your experience or your biggest question in the comments. Your story matters more than you know, and you're not alone. It was an ordinary Thursday. Gray skies, a hint of rain in the air, and the usual rush to get my daughter ready for school. My mind was racing through the day's responsibilities: hospital shift, groceries, making time to visit my parents. I remember tying my daughter's shoes, giving her a quick kiss on the forehead, and thinking about how quickly she was growing up. That morning, I felt more tired than usual, a heaviness in my body and heart that I couldn't shake. After dropping her off, I headed toward the hospital, driving the familiar route through the narrow streets of Braga. I had driven this way 1,000 times, half on autopilot, my thoughts far away, caught up in worries about my family, about work, about life's bigger questions. I recall glancing up at the gray clouds, wondering if it would rain before I made it home. The world seemed so normal, so predictable. If I had known what was about to happen, maybe I would have noticed the birds on the wires, the old man sweeping his sidewalk, the way the wind stirred the leaves. Then, in a single heartbeat, everything changed. As I entered the main intersection, a loud horn blared, a sound that sliced through my thoughts. I turned my head just in time to see a large truck speeding through a red light, bearing down on my small car. In that split second, I felt time slow down. Every detail became painfully sharp. The screech of brakes, the crunch of metal, the shattering of glass, the taste of blood in my mouth. I remember the crushing force, the pain that exploded in my chest, and the blinding fear as I realized what was happening. They say your life flashes before your eyes, and it's true. Images of my daughter, my parents, my happiest moments, even my regrets, all flickered through my mind like a silent movie. I felt terror, but also a strange clarity, as if I understood for the first time how fragile everything really is. In those agonizing seconds, I thought of all the things I had left unsaid, all the questions I'd never dared to ask, all the love I still had to give. And then, there was only silence. A deep, unnatural silence, as if the world itself had stopped moving. I felt my body growing cold, heavy, as the pain began to fade. My last thought was for my daughter, her laughter, her tiny hand in mine, and a desperate prayer. Please, don't let her lose her mother. Have you ever experienced a moment when everything changed in an instant? Have you ever faced danger or loss so suddenly that your entire perspective shifted? Share your story or your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might help someone else who feels alone in their struggle. The silence that followed the crash wasn't like anything I had ever known. It wasn't just the absence of sound. It was as if the whole world had been swallowed up, leaving me floating in a strange, weightless darkness. I was aware of my body, but only distantly, as though I was drifting farther and farther away from it with every passing second. I couldn't feel the pain anymore, only a dull numbness, a heaviness that seemed to pin me in place and set me free at the same time. Time lost all meaning. I don't know if it was seconds or minutes or hours, but I remember an overwhelming urge to hold on, to life, to my daughter, to everything I loved. Yet at the same time, I felt myself slipping, as if I were a leaf being carried gently away by a stream I could no longer fight. I could see faint lights, blurred shapes moving in the distance, and I heard faint voices, paramedics maybe, or just echoes of the world I was leaving behind. Their words were muffled and far away, like voices heard underwater. As my breath slowed, every sense seemed to awaken in a different way. My whole life wasn't just flashing before my eyes. I was feeling it. The laughter of my daughter, the hugs from my mother, the bittersweet ache of missing my late father. I saw moments I had forgotten, simple joys, small regrets, all woven together into the tapestry of my life. It was all so precious, so fleeting. I felt regret for the arguments, for the missed opportunities to say, I love you. But more than anything, I felt gratitude, a deep, aching gratitude for every moment I had been given. The darkness shifted, and I felt a gentle warmth spreading through me, replacing the cold and fear. It was as if invisible arms were holding me, comforting me. I heard a melody, soft and pure, more beautiful than anything I had ever heard on earth. It filled me with peace, a peace so profound it made me want to weep. All fear faded away. I was not alone. I was being carried by love, by light, by something greater than I could ever understand. For the first time, I understood that death was not the end. It wasn't just an ending, but a crossing over, a doorway to something more. In that space between worlds, I realized how little control we truly have over when or how our time on Earth will end. All the things I had worried about seemed suddenly so small, so meaningless compared to this overwhelming presence of love. And then, something remarkable happened. I felt a pull, gentle but unmistakable, drawing me upward, away from the wreckage, away from my broken body. I felt lighter than air. I was leaving behind all pain, all worry, all fear. Have you ever wondered what you would feel or think in your final moments? Do you fear death, or do you see it as a passage to something greater? Please, share your feelings, your hopes, or your fears about this topic in the comments. Let's support each other in this journey of understanding what lies beyond. As I surrendered to that gentle pull, I felt myself completely separate from my physical body for the very first time. It was unlike anything I had ever imagined. I looked down and saw myself, motionless in the wreckage of my car, paramedics moving urgently around me, their faces drawn with worry and determination. There was a strange detachment. I knew it was me, but I no longer felt pain or fear. Instead, I felt a profound peace, deeper than anything I'd ever experienced. It was as if all the burdens and anxieties of my earthly life had simply dissolved, leaving behind only the purest essence of who I was. As I drifted higher, I noticed the city around me glowing with a light I had never seen before. Every building, every tree, every person below seemed illuminated from within by a gentle radiance. I realized that I was no longer limited by the physical senses of my old body. I could feel the emotions of those nearby. My daughter's confusion and fear as she was told about the accident. My mother's sudden sense of dread at home. The compassion and urgency of the medical team trying to save me. It was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time, to sense the interconnectedness of all our lives, the invisible threads of love and sorrow that bind us together. Then, the world began to fade, and I felt myself moving toward an indescribable light. It was both everywhere and in a single point ahead of me, calling me with a love so powerful that I wept with gratitude just to be near it. The closer I drew, the more I felt wrapped in warmth, forgiveness, and complete acceptance. I remembered every mistake I'd ever made, every time I'd hurt someone or let myself down. But instead of shame, I was flooded with understanding and compassion, not just from this light, but for myself as well. Shapes began to form within the brilliance, and I saw what looked like a vast field stretching out before me, shimmering with colors I had never seen on Earth. The air felt alive, carrying music that seemed to come from within my very soul. I sensed the presence of others nearby, souls, like me, on their own journeys. Some felt familiar, as if I'd known them forever, even though I couldn't see their faces clearly. There was no fear, only the profound certainty that I was home, that I belonged here. And then from within the light, a presence approached, pure, radiant, unmistakably holy. Even before I saw him fully, I knew who it was: Jesus. The love emanating from him was overwhelming, beyond words. He looked at me, not with judgment, but with understanding, as if he saw every part of my life and still embraced me completely. I fell to my knees in awe, unable to speak, feeling both incredibly small and infinitely valued. In his eyes, I saw galaxies of mercy. His voice, when it came, was both thunder and whisper, music and silence. He spoke not just to my mind, but to the deepest part of my soul. Being in that presence changed everything I thought I knew about myself, about God, about what truly matters. I felt a healing beyond physical, a restoration of every broken place inside me. Have you ever had a moment, a dream, a feeling, or an experience where you sensed something beyond this world? Have you felt peace or a presence that words cannot explain? Please share your story or your questions in the comments. Your experience might bring hope to someone who needs it today. Standing before Jesus, everything I had ever believed, doubted, or feared seemed to dissolve in the light of his presence. His appearance was both familiar and awe-inspiring. He was radiant, yet approachable, powerful, yet infinitely gentle. His eyes were the deepest wells of love and understanding, as if he could see every memory, every regret, every secret, and still, nothing but love poured from him. I tried to speak, to ask the questions that had haunted me for so long, but words failed. It was as though he already knew them all, every hope, every pain, every silent prayer I had ever whispered in the dark. He reached out, not with condemnation or disappointment, but with arms open wide, and I felt myself embraced by a warmth that healed places in me I didn't even know were wounded. His touch was like sunlight after years in the cold. All around us, the light shimmered and moved, alive with a music that felt like home. I saw flashes of my life, not just the moments I remembered, but the impact of my choices, the ripples of kindness and pain I had left in the lives of others. I felt no shame, only deep awareness and the invitation to see myself and others through eyes of mercy. Jesus spoke to me, not just with words, but through pure knowing. He showed me how, even in my darkest moments, I was never alone. He reminded me of the nights I cried out for meaning, the days I felt lost, the times I doubted even my own worth. Each of those moments, he said, were precious to him. He had been there, quietly, patiently, loving me when I could not love myself. I asked, with my heart if not my voice, why me? Why did this happen? What is the purpose of all this pain? His answer was both gentle and profound. He spoke of a love that was greater than suffering, of a purpose that ran deeper than earthly understanding. He told me that my life, every life, was woven into a tapestry I could not yet see in full. Every act of kindness, every tear, every prayer mattered more than I could imagine. He told me about forgiveness, not as something I had to earn, but as a gift already given. He showed me that my mistakes and failures did not define me. Instead, it was my willingness to seek truth, to love, to forgive myself and others that mattered most. In his presence, I understood for the first time that real peace was possible, not just after death, but here and now. In every moment, I choose to open my heart. Jesus then looked into my eyes and showed me scenes from the world: wars, disasters, families torn apart, and people longing for hope. He wept with compassion, his tears shimmering like jewels. He said, "You are here to carry this message. The world needs hope. The world needs to remember love." In that moment, I felt both an overwhelming sense of responsibility and the greatest comfort I had ever known. I wanted to stay forever, wrapped in that perfect love. But I knew, deep down, that my journey was not yet finished. Have you ever longed for an encounter with something or someone greater than yourself? Have you ever felt forgiven or found peace when you least expected it? Share your feelings or any moment when you felt truly seen and loved in the comments. Your words could touch another heart that needs hope today. Still standing in the presence of Jesus, I felt the atmosphere shift. The loving light around us grew even more intense, alive with a sense of urgency and sacred purpose. I could sense that something immense was about to be revealed, something not just for me, but for all who would listen. Jesus' eyes became even more compassionate, and he invited me to look not just at my own life, but at the destiny of all humanity. He reached out his hand, and suddenly the space around us changed. It was as if we were standing above the earth itself, watching the world unfold beneath our feet. I saw cities and forests, oceans and mountains, but most of all, I saw people. Billions of souls, each one surrounded by invisible threads of hope and fear, love and longing. Jesus said, with a voice that filled the universe, "I am going to show you the 4 signs before the rapture, so that you, and all who hear this, will not be caught unprepared." He showed me the first sign. The world was gripped by overwhelming confusion and division. I saw people arguing, families torn apart by mistrust, nations standing on the brink of war. Even those who once stood together in faith now doubted and accused one another. Technology spread lies faster than truth, and people's hearts grew cold with suspicion. I felt the ache of loneliness sweeping across continents, people longing for connection, but finding only anger and fear. Jesus looked at me with sorrow, saying, "The first sign is the great division, hearts divided, truth twisted, love growing cold." Then came the second sign. The earth itself seemed to groan. I saw storms of unprecedented fury. Hurricanes, floods, earthquakes shaking cities to their foundations. Fires raged across forests and mountains, while droughts left lands barren and people desperate for water. Nature was crying out, and yet so many ignored the warnings. Jesus spoke softly. The second sign is the distress of creation, nature rebelling, a wake-up call to all who live on the earth. Next, the third sign unfolded. I saw people clinging to false saviors, idols of wealth, power, pleasure, and fame. They chased after fleeting happiness, but it always slipped through their fingers, leaving emptiness behind. Even in churches, I saw many lost, following charismatic leaders instead of seeking truth. There was a hunger for meaning, but few turned their faces upward. Jesus said, "The third sign is deception, false prophets and false promises leading many astray." Finally, the fourth sign appeared. A great darkness swept across the globe. Fear, hopelessness, the sense that all was lost. But within that darkness, tiny sparks of light began to shine. Men, women, and even children who turned to prayer, who forgave their enemies, who dared to love when it cost them everything. I saw people kneeling alone in their rooms, families reading the Bible together, strangers reaching out with kindness. Jesus smiled through tears and said, "The fourth sign is the rising of the faithful, a remnant awakening, shining brighter as the night grows darker." He turned to me and placed his hand over my heart. "Tell them, Sophia. Tell them not to be afraid. These signs are warnings, but they are also invitations. My love is greater than any darkness." Now is the time to wake up, to turn back, to love more deeply than ever before. The world needs hope, and you must share what you have seen. The vision faded, but the weight of his words burned within me. I knew that this message was not just for me, but for everyone who still wonders if there's hope, if there's time, if they matter. Do any of these signs resonate with you? Have you noticed division, natural disasters, deception, or a longing for hope in your own life or community? Please, write in the comments which sign speaks to your heart, or share your thoughts and prayers for the world. Your voice matters more than you know. After Jesus revealed the 4 signs, he allowed me to see even deeper, a vision within the vision, as if I were being shown the hidden currents shaping our world. I felt his compassion and urgency, and knew these prophecies and warnings were not meant to frighten, but to awaken and prepare every soul who would listen. I found myself standing on a high place, watching the world as though time sped up. Days and nights flickered by in rapid succession. I saw cities that never slept, screens glowing in the hands of billions, people lost in endless distraction, searching for something to fill the ache inside. I saw loneliness, even in the middle of crowded streets, as people scrolled through images, comparing, judging, always longing, rarely satisfied. Then, I saw waves of unrest, protests in different languages, people clashing, crying out for justice, for peace, for understanding. Some voices were brave, standing for truth and mercy, while others were consumed by anger and confusion. The world seemed to stand at a crossroads, teetering between hope and despair, as if every soul was being asked to choose, to close off in fear or to open up in love. I saw natural disasters strike, floods washing away homes, fires turning forests to ash, storms raging with a force that stunned even the strongest. I saw communities shattered, but also people rising from the wreckage with extraordinary courage and compassion, neighbors becoming family, strangers offering shelter, hands reaching out in the darkness. It was as if every tragedy called forth both the best and worst in humanity, and Jesus whispered, "Suffering does not have the last word. Love always finds a way." Then, the vision became even more personal. I saw families like mine facing trials, parents worrying about their children, children worrying about their future, relationships strained by stress and misunderstandings. I saw people battling sickness, addiction, depression. Some felt invisible, on the edge of giving up. Yet, amid these shadows, I witnessed quiet miracles. A father reconciling with his son after years of silence. A woman forgiving the one who hurt her most. A teenager choosing hope over despair. Jesus showed me a great harvest, a wave of people turning to prayer, seeking answers in their pain. Churches filled, not with judgment, but with wounded hearts longing for grace. I saw the Bible, once ignored, now opened with trembling hands. I saw acts of kindness in secret, the lonely finding friendship, the guilty discovering forgiveness. Finally, Jesus spoke again. "Warn them, Sophia. The time is short, but my mercy is endless." The world stands on the edge of great change, but every heart still has a choice. Tell them, return to me. Forgive, love, heal, and stand firm. The darkness will not last forever. Those who seek me will shine like stars. As the vision faded, I wept with both sorrow and hope. I understood that every act of love, every honest prayer, every choice for kindness has power beyond what we can see. The prophecies were not just warnings. They were invitations to be part of the greatest story ever told, the return of hope, the triumph of light over darkness. Have you ever had a moment where you felt the world was changing? Have you seen signs or had dreams that made you stop and think about the future? Please, share your story, your fears, your hopes, or even your prayers in the comments. You never know who you might inspire or encourage with your words. After the visions and messages, I felt the presence of Jesus, and the overwhelming love of heaven begin to draw back, as if the very fabric of eternity was gently closing around me. There was a part of me that wanted to stay forever in that place of indescribable peace and purpose, to rest in the arms of a love that made all wounds disappear. But Jesus looked at me with tenderness and spoke, not in words but in certainty. Your journey isn't finished. There are people who need your story. Go back and tell them they are loved. Carry my hope to those in darkness. In a single instant, I felt myself pulled away from the light, tumbling down through layers of sensation, sound, color, pain, until I crashed back into my physical body with a force that stole my breath. Suddenly, everything was noise and confusion, the beeping of machines, voices shouting medical commands, the burn of pain radiating through my chest and limbs. I gasped, disoriented, my mind torn between worlds, my heart shattered by the weight of what I had experienced and lost. Waking in the hospital, surrounded by white walls and anxious faces, I struggled to understand if any of it had been real. My body was broken and weak. Every movement brought waves of agony, every breath a reminder of how fragile life truly is. The nurses and doctors told me I was lucky to be alive, but I felt both grateful and overwhelmed. The memories of the accident, the out-of-body journey, the meeting with Jesus, they haunted me, more vivid than any dream. At first, I hesitated to share my story, afraid that no one would believe me, afraid that they would dismiss it as the hallucinations of a mind traumatized by death. But as the days passed and my physical wounds began to heal, a new kind of ache grew inside me, a fire that would not let me rest. I remembered the urgency in Jesus' voice, the sorrow in his eyes as he looked at a world on the brink. I remembered the signs, the visions, the call to wake up and love deeper than ever before. I realized that I had been given another chance, not just for myself, but for everyone who felt lost, broken, or afraid. There were nights when I couldn't sleep, replaying every detail of my experience, feeling both blessed and burdened. Sometimes I wept, longing to return to that place of peace, aching for the touch of Jesus, the music of heaven. But every morning, I chose to get up, to fight through the pain, to hold my daughter close and whisper prayers over her as she slept. I started writing my story, first in secret, then with trembling hands. I began to share it with friends and family. Some believed me immediately, moved to tears by my transformation and the passion in my voice. Others were skeptical, polite but distant, unwilling or unable to face the reality of what I described. There were moments of deep loneliness, when I questioned whether my mission was too great, whether I was strong enough to carry such a message. But every time doubt threatened to consume me, I felt a quiet reassurance, sometimes in a sunrise, sometimes in a stranger's smile, sometimes in the gentle comfort of my daughter's embrace. Returning from death changed everything. I couldn't ignore the suffering around me anymore, or the beauty hidden in every ordinary moment. My priorities shifted. I became slower to anger, quicker to forgive, more open to love, even when it was hard. I began reaching out to others, listening to their stories of pain and hope, sharing what I had learned about mercy, grace, and the promise that none of us is ever truly alone. My healing was not just physical. It was spiritual, emotional, and it's still happening every day. I'm learning again and again that the real miracle is not just coming back to life, but choosing to live with purpose, to carry light into the darkest places, to be a messenger of hope even when the world seems lost. Have you ever come back from the edge, physically, emotionally, or spiritually? Have you faced moments where you wanted to give up, but found a reason to keep going? Please, share your story, your struggles, or your triumphs in the comments below. Your journey might be the encouragement someone else needs to keep believing in second chances. Surviving the accident did not simply bring me back to my old life. It shattered and remade me, awakening something I never imagined possible. Every morning I feel the weight and wonder of having been given a second chance. There are days when I catch myself staring at the sunrise, tears slipping down my face, overwhelmed by gratitude for the simplest moments. My daughter's laughter, my mother's gentle hands, the taste of fresh bread, the comfort of a hug after a hard day. But woven through the beauty of this new life is the constant sense of mission, the memory of Jesus' eyes, his plea for the world, the visions that burned themselves into my soul. I cannot escape the feeling that time is precious, that every interaction is sacred, that there is an urgency to wake people up to the reality of both love and warning. Some days are full of doubt. I wonder if I'm worthy of the calling, if my voice is strong enough, if my story is too strange for others to believe. There are moments when fear whispers that I'll lose friends, that people will laugh, that I'm risking everything. But then I remember the gentle assurance I felt in that other world, that my weaknesses are not barriers, but doorways for God's strength to shine through. Each step I take, no matter how small, is a response to the mercy that brought me back. I returned to my work as a nurse, but everything was different. I no longer saw only illness and suffering. I saw souls on sacred journeys, each person beloved and precious, each moment an opportunity to show compassion. Patients began to notice the change in me. Some would ask, with tears in their eyes, "Why are you so kind? Where does your hope come from?" And I would share, quietly at first, but with growing courage, the story of the light, the warnings, the second chance. At home, I am more patient with my daughter, more attentive to my parents. I pray with a depth I never knew before, pouring out both my worries and my gratitude. The old questions about purpose, suffering, and the meaning of life haven't vanished, but now they rest inside me like seeds planted in fertile soil, growing towards something eternal. Sharing my story publicly was terrifying at first. I worried about judgment and rejection, about being misunderstood. But every time someone reached out, every time a person wrote, "Your story gave me hope," I felt the quiet nudge of the Holy Spirit reminding me, this is why you came back. The world needs warning, yes, but above all, it needs hope. I've learned that the signs Jesus showed me are not just abstract prophecies for the distant future. They are invitations to live differently today, to seek truth, to mend broken relationships, to forgive, to stand against deception, to care for creation, to become a spark of light in a world often overwhelmed by shadows. There is a sense of urgency I cannot ignore. None of us knows how many days we have left, or when our own journey will cross the threshold between this life and the next. But I believe with all my heart that every act of kindness, every courageous choice to love, every time we speak truth or comfort a soul in pain, we help fulfill the very mission that Jesus placed in my hands, to prepare hearts, to awaken hope, and to point people toward the light that never fails. Now, as I tell my story here, I know I am only one voice, but together our stories can change lives, even destinies. If you followed me through every chapter, know this: you matter more than you know. You are loved, you are seen, and you are being called to step into the fullness of your purpose. Have you ever felt a calling, a pull to share something, to help, to encourage, even when it was hard? Have you experienced moments that changed your life forever? I invite you. Share your story, your calling, your questions, or even your fears in the comments below. Let's become a community of hope together. Your words could be the answer to someone's silent prayer. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel, share this video, and help us spread this message of warning and hope. Together, we can shine a light that pierces even the deepest darkness.